Well, you join us in Westminster as the exit polls, as commissioned by the British broadcasters, have just been released, and they deliver some pretty dramatic news. It is predicted, they are predictions only, not the final results, but they are genuinely quite accurate, that the Conservative Party will remain the biggest party in the House of Commons, but with only 314 seats. That's a few less, considerably less actually, than they have at the moment. The Labour Party, according to the latest poll, will have in the region of 266 seats. That's a considerable increase on what they have at the moment. And in Scotland, north of the border, the Scottish nationalists will have around 34 seats. That's considerably fewer than the 50-odd that they have at the moment. That is going to be a shock result, a very disappointing result to the Prime Minister Theresa May, because it implies that there will essentially be a hung parliament and that the Conservative Party will not necessarily have enough seats to form a strong government with a clear majority on its own. That is not what the Prime Minister Theresa May wanted when she cast the dice in this gamble all those weeks ago. She saw an opportunity. She was being told the polls indicated that she would win a clear majority. She said that she wanted that to better negotiate the Brexit deal with her European partners. That, tonight, if these exit polls are proven accurate, will be very far from the possibility that she was hoping to achieve. To have a little bit more perspective on this, I'd like to bring in my colleague Martin Stanford, a veteran observer of the British electoral scene. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about the three scenarios. This is the worst one for her.
Scenario for Theresa May. Now, if it's borne out, Simon, and we have to put that caveat on it, because the exit poll technology and techniques around this country is pretty good, but sometimes the margin of error is a little more than the average polling. Okay. But if this is accurate, this is an absolute disaster for Theresa May, and I don't see how she could stay on as leader of the Conservative Party. She gambled, as you said, she rolled the dice. I'm way ahead in the polls. I'm going to get myself a big parliamentary majority. She is now without any friends in Parliament, in the sense the magic number is 326 MPs in that building behind me if you're going to run the country. If this prediction is right, she's going to head for about 314 plus or minus one or two.
There's a loss apparently of 17 seats.
A loss of 17 seats.
Yeah.
Her majority, such as it was, which was tenuous, has completely gone. And the other thing, Simon, which she might have thought of doing, because the Tories and the Liberal Democrat Party, a small party here in the UK, were in coalition up until 2 years ago, they are completely opposed to what she's done about Brexit. So they're not going to go into coalition with her, I would have thought. Yep. For the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition, he's done well. He's increased his tally by some 20 or so,
yeah, or
but
34 seats possibly.
Into government.
Yeah. Now, if we go back 3 or 4 weeks,
yes,
the polls are suggesting that the gamble was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
She might have got over 100-seat majority.
Extraordinary.
What an extraordinary turnaround.
And that is kind of her pitch, wasn't it? Part of the rhetoric of Theresa May throughout this is give me the backing I need, give me the clout, so that I'm speaking for the whole of Britain as I go into this negotiation with these pesky Europeans and we try and sort out Brexit over the next couple of years. This is a disaster for Brexit. This is a disaster for Theresa May. It's a disaster for the Conservative Party. And you know, UK PLC, it's not great news for them either.
No, the pound is already sliding on the markets. The pound is already down 2 cents on the market.
I'm not surprised.
No one likes uncertainty, least of all the financial markets.
And this is uncertainty personified.
And our European partners, I would have thought, will be looking at us saying, well, hang on, who are we going to negotiate with now? They simply don't know.
No, I mean, the way that the British system works is actually Theresa May stays as Prime Minister for the time being. She isn't required to resign. So in an interregnum, if this plays out, let's put that caveat in it again.
She's still the largest party.
She is still the largest party, and she's still the Prime Minister until such time as Parliament reforms and she fails to secure a vote of confidence in the House of Commons.
But as you say, given her position, who can she do business with? Who can she form a coalition with?
I think in the normal protocols of British politics, she will have to resign tomorrow morning if this poll is accurate. She may argue, a bit like Labour politicians have in the past, Gordon Brown did in the past, I need to stay on through a period of uncertainty, I can't go quite so soon. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But in terms of that fundamental pitch that Theresa May said, I'm in control, I'm Prime Minister, but I need certainty, this is the opposite, the polar opposite of certainty.
And what an extraordinary turnaround in the political fortunes of one Jeremy Corbyn, 2 months ago being written off as a complete no-hoper.
Yes.
and now somewhat of a hero figure of the left, a resurgent Labour Party.
Yes, I would just temper that a little bit by saying he's kind of promised his followers we're going to get into government. On these numbers, he's nowhere near government. But of course, he is some 30 or 40 MPs much closer to government, and I suppose that's seen as a result. So if one wants to continue the idea of chaos in the political system, that perpetuates that too, because he is now a successful leader, but we know that his parliamentary colleagues, most of them don't like him or don't rate him very much. So he can point to that success. I got a few more MPs into the House of Commons, but I am not Prime Minister. So there's two sides to that story too.
But from a person who was leading a party that was predicted to get, I mean, half the number of seats that they appear to be on the way to, that's testament to a pretty good campaign, I would suggest.
I think he's had a good campaign. Yeah. I think even maybe Conservatives would argue that he had a good campaign. Just on the size of the smaller parties, interesting, the Scottish Nationalists played a big part in Parliament down here in London because of their big bloc. The entire representation of the whole of Scotland was Scottish Nationalists. And interestingly, the third party in UK politics, the Liberal Democrats, who were reduced to this rump of just 9 MPs, if these numbers are correct, they're going out to 14. Well, that's a small game.
A minor recovery.
That's a 50% improvement.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned the Scottish Nationalists, Martin, because I think we have up in Edinburgh my colleague Francis Collins. Francis, if you're there, a devastating result for the Conservative Party, a lot of political uncertainty down here for the foreseeable future, that's for sure, but a slight diminish prospects for the Scottish Nationalists. They've lost 20 seats. What do you attribute that to?
Well, it comes down to two things, it seems, the two dominant themes that we've come across since we've been in Scotland and we've been around a few places talking to people. Centre, of course, on the push for a Scottish referendum 2, Indie Ref 2, they refer to it here, and also the uncertainty regarding Brexit. Quite a few people who have said that they're very tired of the referendum talk. This wasn't just supporters of the Conservative Party under Ruth Davidson, who of course have been very, very clear on their stance against a second referendum, but simply others as well. They accuse the Scottish National Party of having simply one agenda. Don't forget they are in power at Holyrood at the local Scottish Parliament, having one agenda, which is namely the referendum. Now, ironically as well, we've had other people saying that it's been the other parties talking mostly about the possibility of a second referendum, the Liberal Democrats, Labour and the Conservatives. So it does seem to have dominated the agenda. There's also been criticism as well of the Scottish National Party's record locally. They certainly had a reduced vote, probably comparable to the exit polls we're hearing about from you, Simon, in the local elections just a few weeks ago. They've been in power for over 10 years. Many people say they should have done better on a fiscal level. This, of course, can strengthen the argument of a lot of people who want to stay within the Union, within the United Kingdom, because they believe that protects them from any sort of fiscal problems in the future. But then again, in 2008, there was the economic crisis and they had to deal with that, and they certainly haven't returned the economy to the levels that were there in Scotland before that. But it does really come down to these twin pillars, Brexit and the uncertainty, because no one knows exactly what's going on there, what the deal is, and from what you've been saying, indeed, who is going to be negotiating for Britain when they start very shortly, and the possibility of another Scottish referendum 3 years after the first one.
All right, Francis Collins there with the perspective from Edinburgh. A very, very surprising result, I think, if you were Theresa May. The gamble that she embarked on 2 months ago to try and increase her majority appears to have rebounded, failed in a spectacular fashion. The exit poll, I stress again, it is only an exit poll, but they are usually fairly accurate, predicts not an expanded majority, what we call a hung parliament. Her party, the Conservatives, remaining the largest party in the Houses of Parliament behind me, but with nothing like the necessary majority to form a stable government. With that, back to you in Istanbul.